Legend. Legend. Legend.
Make that noise again.
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 Legend. Legend. Legend.
Make that noise again. Make that noise again.
I don't see that thinking I won't be able to do it.
Hello, everyone. I'm Professor Geek. Welcome back to the channel. More classic fun with Big Al there, and thank you to Stephen Cruz, wherever you are out there, for making those great music pieces and cut from our conversations, and then I would put the videos together for them. But welcome to you all. Dr. Nicholas says you're killing it, Big Al. I don't think he's here again. I think he's missed it once again. So anyway, welcome to the chat. I thought it'd be cool to have these flags up behind me, but then I got on camera. I was like, I look like I'm in a terrorist hostage video or something. You know, they're usually like in a cave with some flags draped behind them or something. I don't know, but that wasn't the intention. The intention was to. I also thought these flags were going to be much smaller when I bought them. I was going to kind of put them strategically around, but yeah, they're big. They drape. They're a good backdrop for the topic of the night, and I'll get into that in a second. But welcome everybody. Private Eye in Retrospectiva. Good to see you there. Platinum Ink Vids, Studio Super, Nathaniel Zalozball, Eldridge fan coming in with a super chat. A two-part question. First, before you start, what's your favorite KOTOR 2 build? I like Jedi Watchman. It goes with the covert conspiracy feel of the game. I really thought because I do Jedi Guardian on KOTOR, and I really thought I would do a different build on KOTOR 2. But the more I read the books and everything, and especially playing into Star Wars: The Old Republic, you know, their expansion stories that have to do with Revan and Mitra Surik and whatnot, I still play Jedi Guardian. That's not, I'm like not arguing that that's the right way to play or anything. That's just what I chose. I just like that dynamic too with the other characters. Even though I usually play it as a male character, a Mitra Surik or something like that. But yeah, boring, I guess, but that's me. A troll, welcome. Stephen M, good to see you there. Of course, my dear sweet sound engraver. Leia Plus Size, Darth Enigma, Electric Barbarella, Crystal Ashes, Guyvart, great to see you there. And Eldridge fan's second question here. Ever become a fan of an author first introduced through their Star Wars EU books? I've read other stuff by Stover, Barbara Hambly, and Sean Stewart of Yoda Dark Rendezvous. Not many, believe it or not. There's two authors that I started reading their other stuff. One was John Jackson Miller. I loved his Star Wars work so freaking much that I was like, well, he's got to write some great stuff. So that's when I checked out his other work. I don't know if I really would have read Batman Resurrection if it hadn't been for me knowing his work from the Star Wars EU. I also checked out his other comics and stuff like that. So him, I'm sorry to mention the second one, Drew Karpyshyn. I tried. I love his work so much in the Star Wars EU, and I tried. He's got this like series of fantasy books. It's so bad. It's so bad. It's so horribly paced. And all of the reviews say, you know, you give it to halfway through the book and then it'll start getting up to like halfway through the book is way too long for me to just bear with it. No, pass. So I'm sure maybe these novels get amazing. You know, that's what everybody was trying to tell me with Wheel of Time too. I read the first one. I'm like, it wasn't bad. Super derivative of Lord of the Rings, but whatever. I didn't really enjoy it or have a lot of fun with it. And everybody's like, you gotta give it to the third book, man. You gotta give it no. I'm not. What other job would you let like somebody build your edition on your house? Wait till they get to their third edition, though, man. That one's going to be amazing. I know the first one's leaking and all that kind of no. You hook me with the first story or I'm out. So that's my answer to that question. But I should check out more of them. Sean Stewart and Stover's other work. I mean, a lot of great writers if they write good stuff. But it's a cautionary tale, though. And I don't mean to dump on Drew Karpyshyn. Maybe he's wrote really amazing other things. But I do think some people need a pre-established universe. They're not really great at creating their own because it's a lot of work. The thing is, going into a Mass Effect novel, because I think Drew Karpyshyn did those too, or going into a Star Wars novel, the fans are already, no one comes to a Star Wars novel without knowing anything about Star Wars, So you're already, the fans are already kind of coming with a built-in knowledge, and that takes a lot of pressure off you as a writer. You don't have to, establish, but so much, you still should do it, to a certain degree. But world building and writing are two separate things. They really are. And some people are really good at one and not so much at the other, or are only good at one and not the other. And you can kind of tell sometimes. So anyway, moving along, welcoming everybody. Thanks for the super chat, though. Appreciate it. People chatting. Studio Super, thank you for the super chat. Said, well, considering all of our entertainment is currently held hostage, that's not too inaccurate. Yeah, right. Not too inaccurate. The imaginative hobbyist, welcome, and many more chatting around there. PK7 just on that topic says, I imagine James Lucino or Lucino. I think I'm always saying that wrong. But some great non-Star Wars stuff. Darth Plagueis is one of my favorite books of all time. Yeah, Darth Plagueis is amazing. And I thought the Lord Vader book was going to be amazing too, but it kind of wasn't. It wasn't horrible. It wasn't bad. It just, I don't know. Just I did a review on that. But yeah, I don't doubt maybe his other stuff's good. I'll check these things out at some point. So anyway, before I really get into the content, I did want to mention just one thing. I don't have a full review of this yet because I flew through this. Doug Brody's Shel Murdermind. He had sent me a copy of it a little bit earlier. It was finally released just this past Thursday, I think. So if you pre-ordered it, it should be there in a day or two or whatever, because they ship on the Thursday. But I just wanted to say it's really good. I was telling him it's everything I wanted from the sequel. It really is. Really fun read, but I want to go back through it because I was just blasting through it trying to get, so I could review it, so I could mention it. But then I was like, I don't feel comfortable actually giving a more thorough, in-depth kind of analysis of it, to the degree that I do. So I want to reread it a little more slowly this week when I have some more time too. But just wanted to put that out there. Really great stuff. So again, if you've been sleeping on these books, if you like sci-fi, if you like sci-fi that includes sort of synthetic, AI stuff, like I love that stuff in fiction, but that's where it belongs, science fiction. No, I don't believe this is science fiction, right? A real human being can't go have a real relationship with a robot. But this is science fiction, and that works. But I love it in fiction because I think it's a great way to sort of recontextualize real world struggles and all of that. Anyway, if you like that kind of stuff, pick up Shelley first, which is available anywhere, anytime, Audible, e-readers, or hardback, paperback, whatever. But Shel Murdermind, the second one, is really good too. And I'm pretty sure he's working on a third one. So good stuff. Just wanted to put that out there. I'll give a bigger review of it next week. So as I've said before, I'm this time of year, I always kind of get in. I just have a sort of a hobby of mine, really loving the colonial era and the revolutionary era. And shortly after that, on up into I'd say on up to like President John Quincy Adams' presidency, so like the first 5 presidents of the country. I like that era of history. And I've always liked it, growing up in Virginia. As I've said before, you can't really grow up in any of the states that were one of the original 13 colonies and not have the history just kind of, burrowed into you. And I just am someone that always loved history. I always took to history. To me, it wasn't a bunch of boring lists of events or dates. To me, it was a story, if it's taught properly. So I always loved it. And Virginia, especially, really is proud of their history. I mean, every state, that has it, those kind of ties, of course, it is. But Virginia is just like everywhere you go. There are placards, there are historical homes everywhere. Actually, I forgot to show you. Let me go get a picture. Found some photos. My mother was cleaning out some things at her place, and she gave me these photos. This was when I used to work at one of the historical homes, because I worked at a couple of them around here, and it was me in the period attire, dressing the part. It's kind of a glossy. I don't know if you can see it there. It's me in my mid-20s, all dressed up there in my breeches. And there's a better one, or a little closer one. Looking pretty debonair, if I do say so myself. So, just me. Now, I don't mean to say that, our history in the 13 original colonies or whatever, like it's any better than anybody else's. Because if you grew up out west, for example, you'll have grown up, if you even paid attention to history class, or if the schools are even still teaching anything history-wise, which is ridiculous, but you'll have grown up with a little bit more of, the Spanish territories and the history of the land there before it became a U.S. territory and eventually a state and stuff like that. But obviously, a part of anybody's, in the United States of America, anybody's U.S. history class should include some of, the colonial era, Britain breaking away, the Revolutionary War. I mean, that's how the United States government was founded and whatnot. Crystal Ashes still had that marvelous forehead in those days. Yes, I did. So see, that's what I show people. Like, yes, okay, I'm 45 years old. My hairline's receding. No question. No, not trying to argue otherwise. But I did start with a pretty big freaking forehead. But hey, as phrenology would say, that's why I'm so intelligent, right? Anyway, you guys are chatting around there. So I'm interested in it. I've got sort of a hobby, I'm not a trained historian by any means, but I took a lot of history classes in my undergrad, and I took a lot of literature classes from, the American history. I focused mainly on American literature. I do teach a class, though. It's called Constructing American Heroes, and it's a survey lit class. The point of the class at the university I teach it at is so that students will get some sort of basic coverage of some basic canon United States or American literary pieces, So that's the idea, that's the intent. And, if teachers are allowed to just construct the course or plan the course, design it however they want to. So I designed mine called Constructing American Heroes, and it plays into my, archetypes study and whatnot. So what we do is we look at, I introduce a certain set of the sub-archetypes of heroes, in the American monomyth. We talk about the American monomyth and how it is a distinct variation of the general monomyth or hero's journey. And then we look at the sub-archetype. So for example, we'll look at like the trickster. But what we do for each sub-archetype is that we first locate it in terms of the American literature, the American, canon and stories and whatnot. Its earliest as we can say, its most earliest instance of import. I don't know, weird way of saying it, in American literature. So for the tricksters, first we look at the American Indian trickster mythologies, that were here, before the colonists or settlers came. And we look at some of those, Raven and Coyote and so forth. I mean, there's, tons of those, all kind of variations. But we look at some, and then we trace the trickster to Joel Chandler Harris, Brer Rabbit, Brer Fox, those tales. Look it up even to the Disney version of that. And we talk about how that influences stuff like Bugs Bunny and so forth. And then eventually we get to Spider-Man. So, or so other, comic book superheroes that are also part of American literature, made in America and whatnot. And we do the same thing for all the sub-archetypes. We'll look at the frontiersman. We start with Hawkeye in the Leatherstocking Tales, Last of the Mohicans and all of that, or Natty Bumppo as he's named sometimes, but his Indian name is Hawkeye. So we look at that, and we'll talk about the mythologizing of Daniel Boone and Davy Crockett and all of that stuff, the American frontier. And then we look at Western, myths, Billy the Kid and so forth, and on into our science fiction, ultimately looking at heroes like, Green Lantern or Guardians of the Galaxy, or, but even Star Trek, the space is the final frontier, our frontiersmen out in a different setting. So it's a great fun class, and they get to read some important canon pieces of American literature, but we also get to, link it towards some more contemporary stuff that they've heard of and whatnot. But one thing I haven't done so much in terms of class-wise yet, though, is we do talk, like when we talk about the war hero, I talk about Washington and how it's not a history class. I'm not necessarily teaching them the real things that Washington did, but I teach them how we've mythologized our founding fathers, especially Washington, as this great war hero and whatnot. And I'm really interested in that. I love that. It's hard to talk about it with a bunch of just narrow, myopic little nerds getting their panties all in a twist. But that's not the real history. Oh, but you're perpetuating a lie because it's not the real history. I have no desire to replace real history. People should learn what really and truly happened on Paul Revere's ride, for example. But you can't just discredit or pretend like the true history of it is way superior and way more important to American culture than the myth that rose up. So yeah, Paul Revere tearing off the countryside on his horse, yelling out, "The British are coming," and saving everybody, this and that. That's a great story, and it's Wadsworth Longfellow's poem. It's great, and it should be remembered. Yes, you should also know, the little details, like he wasn't saying the British were coming. He was saying the regulars were coming because at that time they were all British. Yes, we know. Those are the persnickety little things, though, that just you guys know, because we're all geeks, right? If someone sits next to you and goes, I saw a meme that was really funny. It was when the Mandalorian show had just come out. And it was a picture of some women at a table, and there was a little golden retriever dog sitting on the floor next to the table. But the woman who owned the dog was holding the dog's mouth shut, because it was probably barking or something like that. So she was trying to keep the dog quiet or whatever. And it said, my husband, which was linked to the dog. Like the dog was labeled my husband. And at the table, the women were saying, they had little speech balloons, and they were saying, "Why isn't Darth Vader in the new Boba Fett show?" So like if somebody gets something wrong that's like your geekdom, it's like, but that's not actually true because and hey, take a step back, realize that no one cares about that as much as you do. When it comes to history, yes, there's a case to be made that we should, and we do need to make sure that the real history is being taught, that people aren't mistaking the myth for the history. But one of the things I always point out in my class is how important the myth is. Yes, we get it. I know the truth about Pocahontas and her age and John Smith and all that stuff at Jamestown. I don't give a crap. I mean, that's important when I'm looking at the real history of it. But you will pry Disney's Pocahontas out of my cold, dead hands. I freaking love that movie. I love that story. I love the way it's changed and it's mythologized. It's beautiful. And it's a really, obviously that story about their love interest and whatever was long before the Disney show. Or Disney movie, but those stories play a pivotal role in American culture and shaping it and whatnot, even if they're not always true. So yeah, I like looking at how real historical events or people become sort of mythologized, and then how that inspires our works toward and shaping American culture. So I like that kind of stuff. Got a super chat here. Let me hit before I. Darth Enigma, thank you so much for the $20. Very, very appreciative. Said, don't forget about Abraham Lincoln. He used to slay vampires. That's right. I never saw that. Was it any good? The Abraham Lincoln Vampire Slayer. I think that was the name of it, right? That was in that era where the films were all being made, where they were, alternative histories. It was like, or just taking literary works and making them supernatural. So like, Sense and Sensibility and Sea Monsters, or Pride and Prejudice and Zombies. I never really saw any of those. Sometime I should give it a chance, though, I guess. But yeah, good call out there. Studio Super says, and people only ever want to bring up the true history as a justification to crap on and tear things down. Exactly. These folks don't believe in Jesus, but believers folks back then should have been just as perfect. Oh, but believe folks back then should have been just as perfect. Yeah. There's a oh, Big Al's here. Good to see you, Big Al. Thank you for the super chat there, Studio Super. We started with your Love Legend video this time, Al. So you should appreciate that. Someone says, so I guess you don't like Pocahontas 2. I don't like Pocahontas 2 as much as Pocahontas 1. It still has its charm and everything. I'm like, come on. I know she ended up with John Rolfe. Come on. You know? Anyway. Yeah, like I made a video years ago. It was on my 40th birthday, actually. I took a trip to Colonial Williamsburg and Jamestown and all of that, just on my own. I loved it. I had a blast just by myself. You know, it was before Sound Engraver and I ever even, you know, started dating or anything. But just loved it. And I'd been to Jamestown a number of times, and they've got this great statue there of Pocahontas kind of on the shore there. And there's a picture of of John Smith there as well. And Pocahontas has got her hands out, and it's a statue pose that's very evocative of like the Virgin Mary. And I think that's important. I think plenty times the story of Pocahontas or like Mother Virginia of the New World, or she was, you know, I mean, she was bringing, you know, supplies to some of the colonists at different times. You know, this was a Church of England who severed themselves from the Catholic Church. And if you look at belief systems or mythologies or whatever throughout the world, there's always some sort of need for some kind of divine mother. And it's interesting looking at the American cause and how Lady Liberty, you know, kind of stepped in to fill that void a little bit, you know, in different ways. You know, we can look at Pocahontas or whatever. But of course, the statue isn't even how a Powhatan Indian would have looked back then. It's more like a tiger lily would have looked, you know, and the people who tour guide, they always love bringing that up. You know, it makes them sound really smart or something, and like point it out, but stop being a dick about it. Anyway, let me see. I missed Crystal Ashes, I think. Yeah, Crystal Ashes was the last super chat. Thank you for the super chat there. So according to the Conduit 2 game for the Nintendo Wii, Washington and Lincoln are immortal space marines who fight against alien threats. I've never heard of this. Conduit 2. That sounds freaking cool, to be honest. I have to check that out. I'll look up the gameplay later and see if it's anything that might appeal to me. But that's pretty cool. I have and I meant to look up where you can buy this too. I'll have to, when I show this later, I'll look up and put the link. But I found this place, forget what they are, but they do posters. They do a bunch of different t-shirts, posters, magnets, whatever. But they've got this design of the founding fathers as like superheroes and superhero poses. And I got the magnet, the sticker, and the little poster here. It's so great because they're all, you know, it's like the Justice League would be standing out there, but it's all the founding fathers. And you know, you can look at you know, it starts out with Paul Revere, John and Abigail Adams, got Henry Knox, Washington, Franklin, Jefferson, Madison, Marquis de Lafayette, and then Andrew or Alexander Hamilton. But I love that. So I need to get a good frame for it. It's a weird size, though, so I've yet to do that. But I've got the magnet on my fridge and everything. Love that kind of stuff. And you'll see online, too, T-shirts that have, like, some of the founding fathers in, like, the Avengers guys. You have, like, Washington as Captain America, of course. And I think it had Franklin is Iron Man because of the lightning and everything. He's, like, flying a kite, but he's got the Iron Man, you know, logo. And John Adams was the Hulk, which kind of makes sense, you know, if you've seen 1776 and stuff like that too. But anyway, so I love that kind of stuff. And last time I had said that I'd watched The Patriot, and I said a few brief words about it, but people were saying they wanted me to go into it a little bit more depth, so I'll do that. But the other thing I finally watched this week is the John Adams HBO miniseries. This is old, right? This was in like 2008. I never watched it when it came out because I wanted to first read the McCulloch history book that it was based on. And that took me a while because that was a big tome to get through and whatnot. But I finally finished watching the whole miniseries. Sound Engraver watched the first episode with me a few years ago. And it's really amazing. It is different than the McCulloch book a little bit. Not a lot, though. But I'm okay with that, right? If you're making a miniseries, a narration, you know, it's got to be different. So like there are things, for example, the John Adams series really doesn't quite get Samuel Adams right. I'm reading a great biography by Ira Stoll right now of Samuel Adams. And it was hard because they were cousins, Samuel Adams and John Adams. And if you put Samuel and John Adams in the same room, Samuel Adams is definitely the fiery, revolutionary, can't, calm down and moderate himself. He's definitely that one. And John Adams in that chemistry is the one, hey, let's calm down. Let's just wait and see. This isn't that. But of course, if you're with John Adams in any other room where Samuel isn't, then John Adams seems the really fiery revolutionary one, whatnot. So to try to kind of portray John is sort of the more balanced, and get kind of, the miniseries is about him. So let's portray him a little bit more true to his character. They made Samuel just sort of I don't think they did Samuel Adams justice. They made him a little too two-dimensional. But, things like that happen, and I'm okay with it because I'm not looking for the exact history, getting it just right and everything. But it really was a great miniseries. If you haven't seen it, it's, you can buy it. I think it's probably streaming on Max right now because it was HBO, so HBO Max or whatever. But it does a good job of really showing forth, because a lot of times if you hear about American history, and this is a dying thing too, people just don't know history much anymore. And I mean, if you are American, if you grew up in the United States, you got to know certain things. You got to know, like I've heard about questions they'll ask kids, and they'll say, put these following conflicts in American history, put them in order. And they'll list like the Spanish-American War, the War of 1812, the Civil War, and the Revolutionary War. And they will have no clue what order they came in. Like, maybe you don't remember much about the Spanish-American War. Okay, I'll give you a pass on that. Maybe even the War of 1812, if you're not really into history and that's not something, but you should freaking at least know that the Revolutionary War comes before the Civil War. That is that's the war that we gained independence from, and the United States becomes a country in, so, but people just they don't know that stuff anymore. But when you do start getting into history a little bit, or you start watching some things or whatever, John Adams' story kind of ends for a lot of people after the signing of the Declaration of Independence, because he was so important in that, right? He was one of the, Thomas Jefferson wrote it, of course, but Adams was really pushing for it in the Continental Congress there. And, there's that great image of there's a couple images. The one I have in the thumbnail is, I think, John Adams, Ben Franklin, and Thomas Jefferson kind of, writing the Declaration, kind of giving Jefferson their feedback or whatever. But even the great picture, I have it on the wall over here, of the signing of the Declaration of the Independence. You got Hancock, sitting there in the chair, and it's Jefferson, Adams, you've got Franklin, Richard Henry Lee, and so forth, some of the signers there. But that's where John Adams is known for his prominence, just to the casual history, enthusiast or whatever. But of course, he did so much more. I mean, he was the second president, the first vice president of the United States, and the second president. And if you start to get into history a little bit, especially if you learn about the presidencies and whatnot, he had this terrible, terrible thing that he signed off on that Congress wanted, called the Alien and Sedition Acts. And that's kind of what people know him most for once you get into history a little bit. And it's unfair. The Alien and Sedition Acts were terrible. Okay. They basically said that the United States government could imprison or relocate or, any aliens in the country. And this is before they had immigration laws or ways to do it legally or illegally, so it's not linked to today. And then the sedition part was that the government could persecute anybody who wrote and published anything that was defamatory to the United States government. And you might hear that and think, what the freaking heck? You just wrote the Bill of Rights and the free speech, and now your second president is going to have that. And you're absolutely right. It was a stupid thing to do. It was wrong in so many ways, but you've got to understand the history of it and put yourself at that time period. In that time period, as John Adams is president of the United States of America, the French Revolution is going on in France. And the French helped us out in our revolution, and there's a lot of ties there, and a lot of people, Jefferson's party really wants to throw America's support behind the French. And of course, to do that would mean war with England again. And we're still healing and trying to figure out how we're going to even be a country anymore. We can't just go to war with England again. So as these two parties were kind of becoming, splitting off, and you had Hamilton versus Jefferson, Adams, even though he's typically called a Federalist, or he kind of tends to fall into that camp, he himself was really trying to carry on Washington's legacy of trying to be moderate. Let's be peaceful with everybody. We have no business getting into a war again, and you saw the horrible things that are going on in France with the French Revolution. I mean, just, dragging people in power, beheading their kings and all this kinds of stuff. And you had really inflammatory things being written about even John Adams himself or other people in power. So while I still don't say that's why the Alien Sedition Acts were okay, no, of course not. But you can certainly understand their fear and why it wasn't just a matter of, I don't want anybody who doesn't say nice things about me to be able to say bad things about me. No, there was a real fear that you were going to inflame the populace again and crumble the whole new republic that they were trying to build. So you that's one of the cool things about really getting into history, and you can learn that Adams really was responsible for making sure we didn't go to war with France, that we stayed out of the conflict, but also didn't end up at war with France. And you have better appreciation of him and other people like that. So anyway, you also have people who look back at this time and go, well, I can't get behind any of these people. Why they all had slaves. Well, okay, yeah. And so many millions of people before them throughout the history of the world. Does that mean that and not everybody, right? Samuel Adams, for example, John Adams didn't own any slaves. The ones in the North without the plantations were far less likely to own slaves. Samuel Adams, his wife inherited a slave, and he said, no, she can come live with us and we'll take care of her, but she's going to be free. So he freed her, and she lived with them and, helped them out around the house or whatever. Because you think about at that time, what's a young black woman going to do just out there on the streets by herself, trying to fend for herself? That's not really going to be possible so much at that time period, but she was free to come and go if she wanted to, anyway. And of course, Washington freed his slaves. A lot of them freed their slaves after death and so forth. So anyway, you just always have to put yourself in the historical moment, and doesn't mean you agree with everything they might do or any of this policy or that, but you understand it a little bit more. You understand the context of it a bit more. Somebody's saying here in the chat, where'd it go? Oh, shoot, I can't see it. Oh, yeah, Elf Runner, talking about Connor, the guy from Assassin's Creed 3. Let me actually, should have had these things. I have been replaying Assassin's Creed 3 because it is set. You play as Connor eventually, anyway. You play as this. He's Iroquois. I forget the exact tribe that he's from, and of course his father was British. But you're fighting through a lot of the events that happened in the Revolutionary War. Now, I have kind of a love-hate relationship with this game. I don't need it to be historically accurate, and it's not, and I didn't expect it to be, and I'm totally fine with that. Totally fine with that. I do love it. I love it for being able to free roam colonial Boston and revolutionary New York and all these places. It's really cool. I mean, it's accurate, and you've got the town criers out there, and the architecture looks just the same, and it's really cool in that respect. So it's worth just doing that. And there's a lot of things that part of the characters and things that aren't historically accurate, and that's totally fine. I will say that I'm not really an Assassin's Creed fan. This is the only, this and the the little side quest that's part of this one too. The what's it called? The one where you play the woman in New Orleans who is half French Creole and half black. She's an assassin too. I played that, and that's pretty fun too. But these are the only Assassin's Creed games I've played, so I don't really have a sense of the whole overarching story arc of the games. I know some people are super into it, and that's fine. It just doesn't interest me. So I wouldn't really play any more games besides this. So I'm admitting that. But also, Connor, the guy you're playing, he's just a jerk. I don't enjoy his character. He's not poorly written, I don't think, but he's just one of these super self-righteous in everything, and I hate that kind of person. I don't like being around those types of people. Everybody should think they're right. You don't hold to opinions or views or your way of life if you don't think it's right. But he's just like a jerk to everybody, and I just don't like him. I don't like, but I do love the gameplay. I love being able to spend time in this world a little bit, and so that's fun. I don't know. You guys can tell me what you think of it. I don't really have a sense of how popular this one is in terms of like Assassin's Creed players. I think this one spurned the next one that was all about the pirate ship, because you can do a little bit of ship stuff in this one. But yeah, anyway, so played that. One game I haven't played yet that I'm just going to start probably tonight or this weekend at least. I've heard about this game forever. It's really old. It's for PS3, believe it or not. But the PS3 Captain America, I finally got a hold of a copy and really psyched about jumping into this. Apparently it's supposed to be great. It's kind of hit or miss in that era when the Marvel movies were first coming out, like the Iron Man PS3 game, which was linked to the movie, isn't all that great. I mean, you're just playing scene per scene through the movie, and there's a lot of restrictions. And if you're a real big Iron Man fan, it is fun flying around. Don't get me wrong. Some of the gameplay is kind of fun. But again, looking for somebody, I like to play through story and whatnot. I wasn't crazy about that one. But I've heard really great things about Captain America Super Soldier, which might have even come out before the movie, because I don't think this is in any way tied to Captain America the First Avenger. So anyway, yeah, I'll once I play it through, I'll give a review on that as well. Good. Okay, great. Slash says, yeah, the Captain America game is surprisingly good, easily the best of the MCU games. That's what I've heard. Yeah, Private Eye just heard about it too. Good. Yeah, I'll let you know what I think about it. Yeah, it was. I think I picked up I think I got it for like 50 or something on Mercari, but I had to wait a while. To get a copy to show up like that, because they are kind of expensive. Private Eye says, in terms of Assassin's Creed 3, it was pretty hated. Okay. I think it got better with time, but it was not the best ending for the trilogy. Yeah, the ending too, I guess it's like it's putting it like because there are different parts of it. They're in the present, or in the 2012-ish or whatever time it was made, when you're playing with the descendants, but you go into the Animus to get the memories of the colonial times. And yeah, that was kind of a weird ending and stuff. So that makes sense to hear that. Studio Super said, dude, I was just about to ask you about that. When I get the Steam Deck, I'm looking to emulate that. Got the DS version, and that one is a blast as well. You mean the Captain America or the Assassin's Creed one? Is what you're talking about. But I will let you know, I'm really excited to pop this in the PS3 tonight, either tonight or this movie, and play it. So yeah, we'll see. But I remember seeing it at a discount at the time. Oh yeah, that's right. So many great physical media items. Like there are CDs that I'm trying to look for now, and I remember them being like in a bargain bin at Walmart for $3 at one point, and now you can't find it for under 50 or something. So many great physical media items, be it movies, CDs, video games. If I could live back portions of the life again, I would definitely grabbed up a lot more physical media and kept it, because some of that's just hard to find now. There's a band called oh shoot, I always mix up their name. Let me look it up, because I'm gonna get it wrong. Face to Face. All right, so there's this band called Face to Face. I really love this band. They were a new age band, not new age, new wave band in the early 80s. And they had like 2 albums. The singer went on to do some stuff with John Steinman after that, but they had 2 great albums, really cool new wave rock. But then there's a punk band called Face to Face. So anytime you look up Face to Face, you're most likely going to get the punk band results instead of this new wave band. But they were great, and their first album, I'm desperately trying to find it somewhere. You can get the record for some reason pretty cheaply, but anywhere you find a CD, it's like $200. It's ridiculous, because I guess they just didn't print a lot of CDs or whatever. But I'm a CD collector. That's just what that's the type of music I like. I like the sound of a CD. I get people really into the vinyl thing, but I'm just a CD guy. Always have been. I started out on cassettes, obviously, growing up. But once I moved to CDs, I was like, yeah, I'm comfortable here. This is where I'll stay. So anyway, Studio Super says, also a bit off topic, but I'm disappointed that they never played the tune of the Star Spangled Banner or America Yeah, as the Captain America was kicking someone's butt. You mean in the game? That's I imagine that would have been a different vibe, as the kids say today. The only other, I think, Lynn Green, I see you commenting here. Maybe it was you that was saying you'd want to hear more about the movie The Patriot. I'm trying to think. I love the movie. I don't necessarily have like a shot-by-shot analysis of it, but I will say this. The Patriot movie is exactly what I've been talking about tonight. It's a really great way, and I think this is a way that even like historians can get behind, is it takes real events and mythologizes them and fictionalizes them into this story where it's not really trying to tell the real story of any of these characters. All of the main characters, at least the two, your hero, Mel Gibson's character, and then I can never remember his name. Sound Engraver always has to remind me. But Draco Malfoy's father, Anyway, he plays the bad guy, which I'll talk about in a second. Their two characters are very much based on real individuals, sometimes an amalgamation of different individuals in the Revolutionary War. And the story is one that kind of did happen, sort of. Jason Isaacs, yeah, thank you. With the, in general, sort of the general timeline of it. So at the end of the Revolutionary War, towards the end of it, Washington was finally breaking through and getting some traction in the Northern theater, meaning the, like Virginia, New York, the northern part of the country. But they needed to have a presence down in the South as well, South Carolina, North Carolina, the territories down there and whatnot. And General Cornwallis was tasked down there. And if he could just sort of, conquer all of the rebellion down in the South, then he could move his troops up to the North and they would just hem Washington in. So, and this is the real history of it. Washington sent one of his generals, General Nathaniel Greene, great general, really interesting character in the Revolution, sends him to go be the head of the revolution, the army in the South Theater. And he ends up getting this guy under him, Colonel Daniel Morgan. And Daniel Morgan there's some great books about him. He's a fascinating character. On the one hand, he's very rough and tumble, sort of uneducated, a brawler. On the other hand, though, he's very much a self-made man. He's an amazing strategist, for like a battlefield. He knows the strategy and whatnot. He's perfect. He was a big part of one of the earlier victories in the North at Saratoga. It was really, Gates got the credit, but it was really Daniel Morgan that spearheaded a lot of that with Benedict Arnold. But so anyway, Daniel Morgan comes into the South and he leads a lot of these are militiamen that he's leading. And he decides, okay, well, it's in the South. Let's just lead Cornwallis on this dandy chase because they know the land. They've lived here. So they can kind of, take pot shots at the British Army, but then keep taking off. And Cornwallis, all the while, is getting farther and farther from his supply chain. He's becoming more stretched and taxed. And he has this colonel working for him named Bannister Tarleton. And this is who Jason Isaacs' character was based on in The Patriot. They called him Colonel Tavington in the movie, but Colonel Tarleton, the real historical figure, was just a evil person. I mean, no quarter. I mean, if you had people wounded on the field, like the battle, like you'd won the battle, and your enemy soldiers just laying there wounded on the field, he would just go stabbing through them, just impaling them all because he doesn't take prisoners. And he was just burning people's homes, doing horrible things, really ungentlemanly warfare to the evil aspect of it, right? You might say that the Patriots were doing ungentlemanly warfare and that they were sort of doing more guerrilla warfare, hiding behind the trees and this and that. But that's what they were trained to do. They weren't, trained to be front line, European warfare, that kind of thing. So he's leading out. Cornwallis and Tarleton are just sort of constantly getting farther from their supply chain. They're being really spread thin. And then there's this one super important battle called the Battle at Cowpens, which is where Colonel Daniel Morgan just like really shined. He got his militia involved. He put this amazing strategy. They allude to it a little bit in the end battle in The Patriot, putting the militia in the front, and sort of playing off the idea that they would be cowards or whatever in the British's mind. and he just wiped the freaking floor with Bannister Tarleton. This uneducated, self-made man from the colonies just kicked Tarleton's butt every which way, and it was a big, huge, very kind of really paved the way for Yorktown, which was the ultimate ending battle of the Revolutionary War. So it's a fascinating, true story. But then the Patriot, Mel Gibson's character, is very much based on Daniel Morgan's character. Maybe a couple other ones thrown in or some aspects of them or whatnot. And of course, they fictionalize his family and the personal drama and the history and everything that happens with him there. But he leads these militiamen out and doing the guerrilla warfare in the woods, and it's such a well done film. It's done by the director, forgetting his name right now, but who did Independence Day. He likes to do kind of patriotic, mythologized movies and whatnot, fictional. But it's perfect. There ups and downs in it, but none of the downs or none of the emotional kind of gut punches feel gratuitous. And it's just a great movie. I think it came out in 2000, The Patriot, and I really recommend it if you like, the grand sort of mythology, seeing where the American monomyth kind of comes from. It's kind of a modern, year 2000s, 25 years ago, but modern-ish sense of how to mythologize these people and things that went on way back at the founding of the country. So I loved it. I thought it was great, and definitely recommend. Heath Ledger, of course. Before his tragic passing, it was 2000, so it was like 8 years or so away from him, there. But yeah, really great stuff. Trying to think any other, some great actors in it. Who did he play? Never mind. Just trying to think. Oh, I did mention last time the guy playing General Cornwallis was the guy, I think he played Falcone in Batman Begins, and he played Benjamin Franklin in the John Adams miniseries. He did a great job. Great job as that, too. So, all right. Check in to see what you guys have been saying. I don't think I got any more reviews I'm going to go through tonight because we're pretty down to the end of the hour here, but I'll spend a few moments just seeing what you guys were saying. Yeah, Elf Runner was ahead of me there. The guy who played Cornwallis also played Carmine Falcone in Batman Begins. I know his name. I kept saying his name in the credits, but one of the things when it's late and you're streaming, it's so hard to recall all the little things that your brain knows, but you just can't bring it to mind. Yeah, Santa Graver, Santa Graver has access to my Audible account. I've got a couple really good Daniel Morgan biographies on there. American Hannibal is one that's a little bit more like a history book, but it's well done. It's well written. And then there's another one that kind of focuses more primarily on the Battle of Cowpens. But great stuff. Yeah. Let's see what all. Michael Scimbati, good to see you there. Says what I consider Batman Begins in the dark. Michael Scimbati lives, eats, and breathes Christopher Nolan Batman. What I consider Batman Begins, The Dark Knight, 2008, and Rise, decontamination of Batman, or there's oh, you mean deconstruction of Batman? Come Before the Storm. Love those three films. First two more. Yeah, I like the first two films. I don't love them, but the first two movies are solid. I didn't like the third one at all. I felt like I think Nolan would probably even tell you he was phoning it in to a certain degree because he and Bale wanted out of Warner Brothers, but they had to do that one more film, and I just didn't like some of the story places it went. Of course, he was supposed to go differently, I think, because Heath Ledger's The Joker was supposed to survive, was supposed to even be in the third movie. Of course, Heath Ledger passed. I don't really know what you mean by decontamination. I think Batman Begins was a great, promising start to a more comic accurate Batman. And then Batman The Dark Knight just was Nolan saying, nah, screw that. I'm doing my Batman, which is fine. I mean, Nolan did a great film there, but he really veered farther into the Batman is a brooding ninja rather than a detective territory. But Wilkinson, that's the name of the actor. That's his name, the Benjamin Franklin actor. Studio Super still have the character. Oh, thank you, Studio Super. Yeah, thank you. Let me pull those up. Glad we got a few moments now. Yeah, Studio Super, he delivered. Remember a couple of streams ago, he was asking about if he could do caricatures of Sound Engraver and I. He did them. They're now. I tell you one thing though, I'm not that gray, man. They're great characters. They're really awesome. But he's got a black and white version and color version. And the color version was like, dude, there's some color left in my hair. But they're caricatures. That's what they are. Trying to find it. Oh, you did some really cool ones of Batman too. Right now, that's not the one. Let me go back. There, it's worth the wait. I promise. You know what? Such a boomer right now. I can just do a search, find it. All right. I'm gonna open this. I'll open up the black and white ones and show those first, and I'll show the color ones. But they're really quite good. What? Come on. It is being dumb. I don't know. All right. Guess maybe I'll just I can show this. Okay. There we go. Let me save this or share the screen. Thanks for reminding me. I appreciate it. Present screen. All right. So this is the this is his first one of me, black and white. Pretty good, right? Pretty good. I like the Superman, the classic, the real Superman suit. Great, perfect. Got the glasses, got the beard, good stuff. And it's caricature, right? So it's supposed to be, you know. There's Sound Engraver in her. I was giving her a hard time. I was like, okay, you don't have cankles in real life. That's just the comic version of the caricature. But she was actually like, she's like, oh, that's not a violin, it's a cello. No, great work though. Studio Super, really great. Because that's what you're supposed to do with oh, actually, you know, looking at this here, it's more light brown. It's not gray. It's more light brown. Yeah, it's okay. Yeah, it's good. It's good. I think I was looking at it on my phone at first. And then there's the these are great. I mean, this is exactly what a caricature should be. It should be the resemblance of the person and then exaggerated. And I mean, you were kind to us. You could have gotten like, you know, I've had caricatures done of me before with the, you know, freaking leader forehead from Marvel or something, you know. So this was good stuff. But really appreciate you doing that. That was kind of you. And I hope you shared it on your social media and you got some what's the word I'm looking for? Traction out of it. All right. Telegraph said would wear that dress in real life. Absolutely. Got a super chat from Darth Enigma here. Thank you so much for $20. Said the Revolutionary War is cool, but I'm more of a Napoleonic Wars kind of guy. Napoleon actually sold the French Louisiana Territory to us, funnily enough. Yeah, during Jefferson's presidency. He had Monroe over there negotiating the Louisiana Purchase. And of course, that's where we get Lewis and Clark's exploration of all the territory and whatnot, and over more than double the size of the country and all this stuff. So, yeah, it was good. And that's interesting stuff too. Yeah, you can watch some really great documentaries on, because it's so fascinating. You know, as I said, when I was doing my monster stories and monster movie stuff, which I'll be doing again here shortly after the summer, but I mentioned how the French Revolution in some way was doing very much what we were doing in our American Revolution, but a lot of things were different, obviously. But the biggest, I think, why the French Revolution was so bloody and so just barbaric is that they were rejecting the idea of God. You know, in their minds, rejecting the king also meant rejecting the church because it was part of the state at that point or whatever. So like they were, you know, they just rejected the idea of God altogether. And you didn't have that in the American Revolution. You know, even ensconced in the Enlightenment as it was, you know, the worst you had, or the farthest removed from religion you had, were deists like Jefferson and Washington, who at least still believed in a good creator God. so you didn't. So anyway, but it's interesting to see where the French history took from really bloody barbaric revolution to ending up with an emperor, which isn't, I mean, it's different than a king, sure, but it's not crazy different, and it's interesting to see the trajectory of the French history there. Michael Segal said, yeah, I'm at deconstruction. Yeah, so not decontamination, but deconstruction. I mean, people are always trying to deconstruct Batman. You could say it even happened with Frank Miller's Dark Knight Returns, although, as I've said before, that was supposed to be an Elseworlds there. But yeah, they did. That's one thing. They at least got the Wayne's family good, rich, good family. Studio Super said, thank you. I'm actually opening commissions on Sundays. Oh, cool. 10 slots every Sunday for anyone interested. Great. Do you have an email address or a Twitter handle or something you want to put out there, Studio Super, so people can get in touch with you if they're interested in that? But that's a really good idea. I mean, you got it really. You've got, that's the skills. That's exactly what you should be doing if you're going to be doing characters. So that's really great. So yeah, put out your information there. Maybe, are you a moderator, Studio Super? Let me see if I can make you a moderator, because I think then, I don't know, they've changed some ways to do things here. But I think you'd be able to put your information in, or if you want me to just share your email address, I can do that as well. But I think I have to be on YouTube to make you a moderator. Maybe Sound Engraver can do that. Make Studio Super a moderator for me, because I'm on StreamYard. I can't do that from there. But anyway. That's all I got for tonight. This is a good question. An interesting thing to maybe pick up on another week. General Savage said, what do you think of American folk heroes like Paul Bunyan, Pecos Bill, Johnny Appleseed? Love it. In fact, you're probably at least have this in mind. Heroes and archetypes and folklore, but Disney, back in the day when Disney was still worth watching, had a American Legends, and I don't think this was very much in the same spirit of like the Legend of Sleepy Hollow. That was part of a compilation with Mr. Toad, though, the English and the American together. But this one has a great Disney version of Paul Bunyan, John Henry. Really great story of John Henry there, Johnny Appleseed. The Brave Engineer. So yeah, it's great stuff. And I'll show the students some of these things. Well, like look at you can look at a character like Iron Man or Batman in terms of the tech, being sort of a tech hero and whatnot, and our humanity over technology or whatnot. And you can really kind of trace that back to John Henry and stuff like that. So yeah, no, I love those kind of folk stories and seeing how they develop and whatnot. But yeah, it's good.
It doesn't look like I can make him a mod as a mod.
Okay, all right. Sound Engraver can't quite make you a mod. So you said something here. You said, just want to get this information out before we do wrap things up. You said you have your commission info there. I don't see anywhere. Can I put your email address in, Studio Super? Unless you don't want everybody inundating you with email. Let me go and copy it. But yeah. He's also got a Twitter handle. You might have been putting a link in there, but it's not showing up because you're not a moderator yet. And Sound Engraver can't quite figure it out. And I don't have YouTube up right now, so it's just a lot of stuff there. But yeah, I've got your email address ready to go if you want me to share it with folks. Imagine if Hobbyist says, whoops, trying to share that. Says, superhero stuff. You should know released a video detailing a work print they saw of Batman Forever. Interesting stuff. Superhero stuff. Is that a channel or whatever? I do like some of those art prints. I'll see them on social media. And that's cool. Batman Forever. That gets a lot of undue guff. I mean, certainly it wasn't, the Burton films, but it was good. It was good. I liked it. Nathaniel Lizbus says, without John Henry, we wouldn't have DC Steel. That's right. John Henry Irons, right? As they changed his name. Okay, on at Tune Me Up on C. I don't know what C is, Studio Super. But you guys probably do. not X or Twitter, at Tune Me Up. But that's his handle on something, on C, whatever C is. You can get in touch with him there. Oh, he meant on X. Okay. So at Tune Me Up on X, disregard the C. It's at Tune Me Up on X. And that's how to get in touch with Studio Super if you want your own caricature drawn. Good. Got that taken care of. I am going to wrap it up now then, because yeah, C is next to X. Yeah. Well, I mean, I could have figured that, but then there might be some newfangled technology that I didn't understand or whatever. So yeah. Angela's my wife. Super chats automatically finish the words before you type. Yeah. I'll be back next week with we'll have a good I'll do some more of these, American history reviews if I watch a few other things. But I just wanted to do one because this is just what I was doing pretty much solely this week, so I just wanted to focus on it solely. But next week I'll have a review of Shel Murdermind, and there's some other sci-fi films I found that I like to watch too. But I'm just having fun. I really like, it's kind of a hobby of mine of getting into the colonial revolutionary era. If I can think of any more connections or whatever, and I'll talk about, because I do plan on playing this. So if you're curious what I think about the Captain America PS3 game, I'll definitely be playing that and getting at least some sort of idea of it by then. But hope you guys have a blast. Oh, Imagine Hobbyist. Didn't want to miss this. You said, yeah, their YouTube channel, the work print they saw is a version of the film that was still being worked on. Oh, cool. Oh, a print, like an actual, they saw a print of the film. I thought you meant like an art print. Cool. Yeah, well, I'll check it out. That's cool. Yeah, there's supposed to be like the director's cut of Batman Forever too that some people have seen, but they need to go ahead and just release it on a freaking DVD. I don't know if it'd be that different, but I think it's got some cool stuff, additions added to it. All right, guys, so that's it for tonight. You guys have a good week, and until next time, keep enjoying and digging deeper into the true blue hero stories you love. Thanks for watching.